Good afternoon, folks. Thank you for joining us today on this Wednesday for another awesome training brought to you by the statewide training initiative of Florida Legal Services. I say awesome because all of my speakers are just unbelievably amazing. And today we have someone extra, extra special. All of you, I'm sure, know the name, know the face, Christy Baglow, the person who was in my position before me and taught me everything that I know about lots of things, not just this job, but also what we're here to talk about today, veterans work and discharge upgrades. So while I let folks trickle on in, I'll take up some airtime with some housekeeping announcements. First and foremost, this is being recorded. A copy of the recording will be provided to all live attendees and registrants. So if you have to hop off, if you have to go back to work, don't worry. You will receive an email from Zoom 24 hours after the event with the recording, the CLE information, and the materials. So that brings me to housekeeping number two. Christy has offered to share a PDF version of her PowerPoint with us here today. And this was approved for CLE credit. I believe I'll have to double check. It was one general and one bias elimination. Those bias elimination credits are hard to get. So I will announce that CLE code at the end. I will also drop it into the chat, and that CLE code, like I mentioned, will be included in the follow-up email from Zoom that you'll receive in 24 hours. Finally, questions and answers. Please, please, please drop your questions into the chat, into the Q&A, whatever you prefer. I will monitor both of those forms. And at the end, I will read your questions out loud for Christy to answer. If there's a moment to answer them, during the presentation, we will try, but certainly towards the end. So not just your questions, your thoughts. This is an important topic, and we always want to hear what our audience is thinking and feeling. So with that said, I'm going to move into introductions. So as I mentioned earlier, today we have with us Christy Baglow. Christy Baglow is a Florida native and a triple Gator, having received her BA, MA, and JD from the University of Florida. She currently serves as the director of the Veterans Consortium's Discharge Upgrade Program. Christy has been accredited by the VA to represent veterans since 2011 and is also admitted to practice before the CAVC. Christy has represented veterans at every level of the claims process, from initial claims to federal court. She is particularly passionate about discharge upgrades, which can lead to life-changing outcomes for veterans, from access to VA healthcare to long overdue validation of their military service. Helping veterans obtain and keep the benefits they have earned through their military service is Christy's passion and life's work. There aren't enough things that I could say about Christy. I love Christy, and I'm so happy to have her here. And with that, I will turn it over. Thank you so much for being here, Christy. We look forward to learning from you today.
Thank you for that kind introduction, Alexis, and thank you for inviting me to speak about this topic. I did just get a little message that my internet connection is unstable, so hopefully it will be good to us. I may turn off the camera if I have further problems, just to give it some more weight. So thank you everyone for attending today and your willingness to learn about this important topic. I'll basically be giving you an overview of discharge upgrades and then specifically how to help LGBTQ plus veterans. Anniversary of the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So it's hard to believe it's been 11 years. At the same time, it's hard to believe it's only been 11 years. So let's get started here.
And Christy,
as the veterans
that is going in and out just a little bit.
We are now.
All right, folks, I'm messaging Christy. Give us just a second to deal with the technical issues. And I think we lost her, so she'll come right back on. Give us just a moment. I apologize about that. There you are. Can you hear us,
Sorry
Christy?
about that, everyone. It was serious about the internet connection. So I'm going to video just to be safe. Sometimes that helps.
Definitely.
Sorry about that, everyone. All
No
right.
problem. These things happen.
What we do at the Veterans Consortium is provide pro bono representation worldwide to veterans who need help with federal court appeals, who need help with discharge upgrades, which is my area of practice. We also help veterans become United States citizens, and we help veterans through various clinics and a Women Veterans Legal Project. So this is what we're going to learn today. Who is a veteran? You might be surprised to know it's kind of confusing. Cultural competency, how a discharge affects healthcare and benefits. Oh, am I not sharing? Just a second. I thought I was sharing. Sorry, Alexis.
No problem.
Sharing on my end, just not with everybody else.
If anyone else can see Christy's PowerPoint, please let me know in the chat. I know I'm not seeing it, but that might be on my end.
It's hard to be on this end of the camera, I tell you, Alexis. So I'll skip through these slides in the interest of time.
They're always
Can you see it now?
Yes, I see agenda. Who is a veteran? Cultural competency.
Excellent. All right, we're back. Fingers crossed. So what is a discharge upgrade? I feel like there's a lot of myths and misunderstandings out there about veterans who have bad discharges and what rights they have to get an upgrade. There's this rumor that has persisted since the Vietnam era that your discharge will just get upgraded automatically in 6 months. If you don't take away anything else, please remember nothing is ever automatic with either the Department of Defense or the VA. So keep that in mind. There's many different ways to be discharged from military service. Most veterans are discharged with a fully honorable discharge. That is not who we're worried about today. We help veterans mostly with other than honorable discharges. Some of them have bad conduct discharges. I've seen a few dishonorables, but the majority of our work is here at the other than honorable point. That is when veterans are typically not eligible for health care or disability benefits without having a fight about it. And each branch of the service has boards that review veterans' requests for upgrades. But again, nothing is automatic. You have to submit an application to change anything. All right. So this is why I feel so strongly about doing this work. I told Alexis before we started, it is a heartbreaking work quite often. It takes a long time. Much at stake here. Veterans with bad discharges typically have problems being eligible for VA medical care, mental health care, disability benefits, housing, employment. They can't use their status as a veteran to get a job, in other words. And then it also affects survivor and dependent benefits for veterans who have passed away. Veterans with bad discharges are more likely to be homeless and more likely to have suicidal ideation and a higher suicide risk. There's a lot of negative stigma that's attached to getting a bad discharge. So I think it's super important to emphasize not to judge veterans by what is on their discharge paper. There's a wide range of things that could lead to a bad discharge. There may be mental health mitigation. There may be other things that have happened to that veteran. So please don't judge them by their bad discharge. Let's try and look at everything and see what we can do to help them. So if they get an upgrade, they could be able to re-enlist, but as I always remind everyone, the military does not have to take you back. So no matter what changes on your paperwork, we can't make them say yes to you re-enlisting. The most important thing I have found, especially for the older veterans who have been struggling with a bad discharge for longer than I've been alive, is when they get that upgrade, it restores the honor they feel as a veteran. And they're just really relieved to finally be recognized as a veteran after so many years of being told they're not a veteran or feeling like they're not a veteran. So the first level of possibility for veterans with a bad discharge is the Discharge Review Board. There is a very firm 15-year deadline to apply to the Discharge Review Board. Unfortunately, that cannot be waived for any reason or extended for any reason. So I always hope that veterans come to me before that 15 years is up, because sometimes they need more than one try to get an upgrade. It's very difficult to be granted an upgrade. So that is something I caution veterans about, that this is not, there's no easy reset button, nothing is automatic, and honestly, the odds are against them, which we'll get into. So in my PowerPoint that I'll send out to everyone, this is the one-page form. It's called the DD-293. It's literally a one-page form. Please don't let veterans submit a one-page form and think they're going to get an upgrade. They're going to need a lot more than that. So I hope you'll send them to us if you're not able to help them in your own programs, because we really believe in gathering all the records and putting together a comprehensive package so they have the best chance possible to get an upgrade. The Discharge Review Board cannot grant a medical discharge or military retirement. They also cannot review discharges from general court martials. So the great thing about the Discharge Review Board is a veteran could potentially get 2 bites at the apple if they're still within that 15-year timeline. They can ask for a record review first, where they submit everything on paper and ask the board to just review it on paper. Hopefully they get the upgrade after that. If not, they can come back within that 15 years and ask for a personal appearance hearing before the board. So I love it when we have both chances when we need it. I love it more when we win on the first try. So if veterans are past that 15-year timeline, or if they've been denied at both reviews at the Discharge Review Board, they can then go to the Board for Correction and Military Records. Again, it's a one-page form called the DD-149. Again, please don't submit a one-page form. The boards, there is a box on that DD-149 that says you can ask for a hearing. Do not be fooled. They grant hearings like once every 5 years. So you're not getting a hearing basically. So you have to make your best case on paper again. And they are much more lenient about extending their deadline. Technically, you're supposed to apply to the Board for Corrections within 3 years from the date the error or injustice is discovered. So you do have to ask them to waive that, because most likely your veteran has been denied years ago by the Discharge Review Board, or just never had access to an attorney to help them through this process. So they're very nice about waiving it. You just do have to ask for it. But this board does have the ability to change the discharge to a medical retirement or medical or disability. And they also can upgrade from a general court martial. So this is what it looks like when a veteran comes to you and you need at least a beginning of where to start with their case. You're going to find a lot of information on the DD-214, which is the document they receive when they're discharged from the military. So it gives you the dates they served, the branch of service, and then it'll also list out their awards if there were any awards. It should list out when they had combat tours. It does not always happen, but hopefully it mentions if they served in Vietnam or Iraq or Afghanistan. Then what we're concerned with is down here in box 24, the character of service. That's where it will say honorable, general, other than honorable, or below. And then the narrative reason for separation, sometimes that will include a nasty little comment like misconduct, drug abuse, or for our purposes today, it might say homosexual acts. Okay, that's way too much information to share with the potential employer or anyone else in the general public. So that is something we can help veterans with, even if they received an honorable discharge under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, but they have, stigmatizing comments in that box, we can help them correct that. Again, not automatic. So you need to ask for everything. Do you see a trend here? Nothing is automatic. So if you don't ask for it, you will not get it. So we always ask for a change in service from other than honorable to honorable or general, depending on the strength of the evidence. We ask for a change to the reenlistment code. We ask for a change to the narrative reason. We ask for everything. And it's really nice when they actually give us everything we've asked for. It's a wonderful thing. So this is the biggest part of my work, is gathering evidence, because you may have gleaned already that it is really hard to win these, and the boards do not want to grant them just willy-nilly. You really have to put together a very strong case to convince the board that the military did something wrong or that there was an injustice that they should correct. So we request, and if you send a case to the Veterans Consortium, we do all this work before sending it to a pro bono attorney. We request all their military and medical records. We request any post-service medical records if they have VA treatment or private healthcare records, including mental health records. A really critical part is gathering buddy statements, especially from those they served in the military with. I find those to be the most powerful because they speak to all the veterans' honorable service before that mistake that led to their discharge or before that bad experience that led to their discharge. Those can make all the difference. They can also gather statements from family, friends, clergy members, places they volunteer. You can kind of get creative with it. It's another thing I love about this work. It is a treasure hunt. You can be creative. The important thing is to tell the veteran story in a compelling way that makes the board want to make a change. So as you might imagine, this is a really stressful thing for veterans to go through, this discharge upgrade process. That might be why they haven't tried to do it in years, because it's just too stressful to think about. No one expects their military career to end on a bad note. So it is very difficult for veterans to go back and think about what went wrong, what they could have done differently, how much this has affected their civilian life, having the bad discharge. So please do as much as you can to educate yourself, become culturally competent. I am not a veteran myself. I don't have a strong family history in military service. So this is stuff I've had to learn along the way. I'm still learning every day. My clients educate me the most. I'll never forget one of my veteran clients who was upset that the VA was talking to him about his dishonorable character of service. And he said, no, my service was excellent. I served honorably in combat in Iraq. I did mess up at the end. So it's my character of discharge, not my character of service. So that's something I will never forget. And when you're helping with upgrades, you also need to work on LGBTQIA cultural competence. These veterans have especially been stigmatized, whether they served under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, or the previous era, which we will just refer to as the witch hunt era, when there were literally people trying to find evidence that veterans were gay to kick them out. Trauma-informed interviewing is super important also. I always tell attorneys, don't try to ask the veteran about all their stressful experiences in the military during your first appointment. If possible, you don't even have to ask them about their stressful experience because it's probably in their records. So if I can avoid re-traumatizing a veteran, I will definitely do that, because I am not a trained mental health counselor. I often wish I was, but law school did not give me those skills. So the most important thing is to be a good listener, find out what your veterans' goals are with this case. And, of course, caution them if they're not realistic goals, caution them that this might take a while. It will definitely take a while, and that you're not guaranteed an upgrade. I really like making a timeline for these cases. I do it for my own for my own sanity when trying to write the brief, because there's usually so much to address and I don't want to leave out any arguments. I want to make all the arguments possible in the hopes that the board will agree with at least one of them. So since I'm making a timeline for myself, I figure I might as well submit that to the board also. Some cases, it's really interesting to see the timeline. And you'll see that when you start writing out dates and events. And you're basically showing the board, this is the veteran's, the veteran had excellent conduct, excellent reviews, all the way up until their combat tour, or all the way up until they were sexually assaulted, or they could no longer hide who they were, if they're serving under Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And then you see a nosedive in the evaluations, the veteran's behavior. So that can be really powerful to show. And we are going to look at pre-service, service, discharge, and post-service time periods. Now, I tend not to focus too much on the pre-service unless there's something helpful and compelling in there, like a long family history of military service. That's about the only thing I address pre-service. Basically, their lives start when they enter the military in my world. So I really do focus on that. And then we can also show if they have positive post-service evidence, like volunteer work, history of employment, going to college. And again, be creative. Anything good in your veteran's life, use that. So this is the big hill we are trying to climb with discharge upgrades. The boards, and that's both levels of boards, presume that discharges are correct, lawful, and done in good faith. So that's hard to overcome. The veteran has the burden of proof to show that the discharge was either legally incorrect, which is pretty unusual to find, or that it's inequitable, or that rules have changed nowadays, and they never would have gotten such a harsh discharge now. So that's especially true for veterans discharged under Don't Ask, Don't Tell. What worries me, and what I hope you all can help me with, is spreading the word that these veterans absolutely are eligible for discharge upgrades if they were discharged under Don't Ask, Don't Tell or the prior policies. Some veterans have told me that they were told by someone who I'm sure was trying to be helpful that because Don't Ask, Don't Tell was the policy in effect when they served in the military, that there's nothing they can do about it now. That's absolutely not true. That policy has been repealed. It's been repealed for 11 years. They absolutely have every right to try for an upgrade, but it's not automatic. At the discharge review board level, which is that first level of review boards, the evidentiary standards are equity and propriety. Again, we're usually arguing equity. It's pretty rare to find a legal error. And if they received a bad conduct discharge or something along those lines, you do have to ask for clemency. At the Board of Corrections, the magic words are injustice and error. And again, clemency for people who have been through the court-martial process. So here's our focus today. A later change in policy. I argue this when the veteran was discharged under a policy that has been changed. So not only has Don't Ask, Don't Tell been repealed, there have also been lots of helpful memos that have come out just in the 10 or so years I've been practicing in this area. There's also been more of an understanding about mental health issues and how those might mitigate misconduct. I would not say we're there yet. We're definitely not perfect, but there have been some very helpful changes that you can use. You can also argue that the military was inconsistent. This most often comes up in racial disparities. Just like in the civilian world, there are racial disparities in the military between what veterans are punished and what veterans get bad discharges. So you can absolutely argue that. And then you can also argue about personnel records. So that's if the records are irregular, or something along those lines. I don't see that very often. So the error or injustice arguments, we're just arguing, and again, we usually don't see an error, but sometimes we do. So we always have to look for it. And that's something I've used recently with changes in mental health policies. I will say that due to the Navy's new understanding of mental health issues, there's substantial doubt that the discharge would have been the same if the veteran had been discharged today, or if that error of fact or law had not been made. And that's pretty rare. Or you can argue the military service that the veteran was in made a change in policy expressly retroactive to the type of discharge. We're going to argue that whether it's expressly retroactive or not. We're going to argue that things have changed for the better. And if that veteran was discharged today, they likely would not have received such a harsh discharge. And these are all the helpful memos you can use in your cases. There's always more coming out. You can cite case law now. There's really no precedent in upgrade cases, but you can still find similar cases and at least get some ideas for arguments from those and present them to the board as a veteran similarly situated who was granted an upgrade. That can really help. So the first helpful memo that came out after I started practicing was the Hagel memo. That was really based on Vietnam veterans still being denied upgrades after decades, even though, and this is going to shock you probably, PTSD was not even a diagnosis under the DSM until 1980. That was after Vietnam. So the Vietnam veterans were being denied upgrades because they didn't have evidence or a diagnosis of PTSD in service. Okay, well, that was impossible to get because PTSD did not exist as a diagnosis. It does apply to all veterans, not just Vietnam veterans, but that's what prompted the Hagel memo. And the boards are supposed to give liberal consideration of civilian diagnoses. Liberal consideration does not mean they're going to say yes. So don't get too cozy there with that word. The Hagel memo really focused on telling the boards how to be more trauma informed in their approach to looking at these cases. And that's what I caution attorneys about. I say, okay, usually the military was absolutely correct in giving them a bad discharge based on the regulations. Even if they only use drugs one time, it is still zero tolerance. They can still get an other than honorable discharge or worse. But the boards need to take seriously the mitigation arguments that we're putting forward. The Carson memo built on the Hagel memo. It definitely gives them another chance to review if they've been denied several times. So you can use that to waive the Board of Corrections 3-year deadline. And it also mentions TBI as a condition related to PTSD. Those symptoms often overlap. The Curta memo is even better than the Hagel memo. I print it out every time I have a case because it reminds me of all the good arguments I can make. Because like I said, you want to make as many arguments as you possibly can in the hopes that one of them will stick and get you what you're asking for. This focuses more on military sexual trauma as mitigation. That's really important when you're serving LGBTQ veterans, because if they were serving under Don't Ask, Don't Tell or the prior eras, they were even less likely to report a sexual assault because they were worried that could be turned back against them. If they were assaulted by someone of their same gender, they were worried that could be turned against them and they would be accused of being gay and kicked out. So, that's awful to think about, that there was that additional complication on top of the already terrible policy of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I think in the Curta memo is the memo that says an honorable discharge does not require flawless service. I love that. Because sometimes the boards do act like you have to be perfect to get an honorable discharge. That is not true. So these are the 4 questions we typically lay out in our briefs to the board. And everyone has a different style of briefs. I tend to make mine shorter, like memo briefs, because the boards are not typically attorneys. You might have one JAG on the board, but in general, they're non-attorneys. They're officers at the Discharge Review Board or military-related people at the Board of Corrections. So you really have to write for your audience. Make it easy for them to say yes to this veteran. That should always be your goal. So we asked, did the veteran have a condition or experience that may excuse or mitigate the discharge? Did that condition exist during military service? Does that condition actually excuse or mitigate the discharge? That's where the boards are going to push back. They're going to say, okay, well, we see this bad stuff happen to the service member, but we still don't think that overcomes their misconduct. So that's where you have to bring in the self-medicating by using drugs arguments, that sort of thing. Just anything you can think of that shows. And a great example is some of the briefs I've been reviewing recently. They're for veterans who had 4 or 5 combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. They have Purple Hearts, they have combat action ribbons, and they have an other than honorable discharge for one-time drug use. So my strongest argument is, okay, yes, they messed up. Yes, the military has 0 tolerance. However, when weighed against their 4 or 5 combat tours during which they were decorated for their service, you really can't argue that that one instance of misconduct should be used to punish them forever. This is the memo that mentions that honorable discharge does not require flawless service. It's the Wilkie memo, the last one to come out, the most recent one. The next bullet point, the relative severity of some misconduct can change over time. That can be used for marijuana use, but I do caution everyone, don't go too far down that path. We can argue that one-time marijuana use could be seen as self-medication of PTSD or TBI or military sexual trauma. However, there is still 0 tolerance in the military. It is still federally illegal. So be cautious with that argument. And of course, the Wilkie memo also reminds the boards to consider post-service conduct. So again, that education, volunteer work, anything the veteran has done to become a good citizen. We're not going to go too much into these. They will be in the PowerPoint. This is the part we're here for today. So I just wanted to give you a basic overview of the discharge upgrade process before we dive into the specific LGBTQ plus upgrades, because they are a little unique. So like I said, it's kind of hard to believe that this was in effect just over 11 years ago. That doesn't seem like that long ago. I can't believe we still had such a prejudicial policy in place in the military, but we did. And before Don't Ask, Don't Tell, Don't Ask, Don't Tell was like the nicer version of what happened before. So that's extra disturbing to think about. Now, it's not always cut and dry with these upgrades. And again, everyone can just, say it with me, nothing is automatic. So a lot of veterans who were discharged under Don't Ask, Don't Tell don't even realize they're eligible for a discharge upgrade. Either someone has told them they're not, or they just don't know. My most recent veteran that I helped with an upgrade based on Don't Ask, Don't Tell did not realize he could get an upgrade until last year when the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, put out a 10-year commemorative memo commemorating the end of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So there's just not a lot of information out there, and I hope you all will spread the word about this, because it really worries me that I don't see as many of these cases as I know are out there. I know there are thousands and thousands of veterans discharged under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, or the prior policies. And if I'm not seeing that many of them, I think that means they just don't know that they can change their discharge. So the easiest argument to make is that the discharge was based solely on don't ask, don't tell, or a prior policy. That's a fairly easy way to get an upgrade. What usually happens is there'll be some misconduct mixed in there, because I can't imagine how hard it is to pretend like you're not yourself during your entire day job in the military. And then you live in the military. So it's like a 24/7 job. And to hide who you really are has to be just excruciating. There can also be a discharge based on substance abuse related to the emotional toll of don't ask, don't tell. Again, we're arguing that the substance abuse is self-medication of the awful effects of trying to hide who you are 24/7 while you're in the military. There can also be a pretextual discharge. This is especially true for transgender and gender nonconforming veterans, where they're just looking for a reason to kick them out. A constructive discharge is more like where the veteran just decides they've had enough and they try to get out of the military in any way possible. They will just sign anything just to get out and be done with it. So this was the memo that came out after the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Again, laying out for the boards how they should look at the discharge upgrade requests based on Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And it says they should normally grant requests. So that's unusual, because like I said in the prior slides, the burden is on the veteran. So this is quite different. There's been a change in policy. They should normally grant the discharge upgrade requests. To change the narrative reason to secretarial authority, and also change the separation codes so they're not prejudicial anymore. They should change the character of service to honorable. Now, again, you run into problems with that if there was misconduct mixed in. You will have to address that. The reentry code should immediately be changed to eligible to reenter, which is RE1. When you see a bad discharge, it will typically have RE3 or RE4. That means we don't want you back. So you want to get that change. That's another thing you have to ask for, or you will not get it. Because if they're showing their DD-214 to someone who was in the military or who knows about the military, that's going to be a red flag. Even if they have an honorable discharge, if there's the wrong separation code or any nasty comments in the narrative reason, or an RE4 reentry code, that's going to be a red flag, and you don't want that to cost a veteran a job. So in order for all this nice stuff to happen, the original discharge has to be based solely on Don't Ask, Don't Tell, or a similar policy, and there have to be no aggravating factors. So like I said, it's not going to be quite as easy when there's some misconduct or aggravating factors mixed in there. You knew it wasn't going to be that easy, right? I haven't seen a case like this yet where it's just easy to line up. So there's other forms of relief you can ask for if it's important to the veteran. They can ask for their records to be changed or certain negative information to be removed from their military records. I haven't had anyone ask for this yet. Usually the most important thing is getting that DD-214 upgraded. Now, this is interesting, the constructive service argument. You can argue to adjust the separation date to make sure they have enough time in to qualify for something like healthcare, because veterans discharged after 1980 have to have at least 2 years of active duty or a completion of the full term of service to be eligible for healthcare. Now, I have never seen this one. Apparently, it's a thing. I haven't seen it before. Back pay for the remaining period of service contract terminated by the discharge. Hey, why not ask for it? But I haven't made that argument yet. Something to keep in mind, though. And all these forms of relief are from Margaret Kuzma, Dana Montalto, Betsy Gwynn, and Daniel Nagin in the new Discharge Upgraded Legal Practice Manual, which I highly suggest everyone get if you're considering taking discharge upgrades. They are very complicated. There is always new stuff to learn. And it's fantastic that we have a manual now. Okay, so apparently there was this memo that went out, but like I said, my fear is that most veterans discharged under Don't Ask, Don't Tell never saw it. And this letter, it could have been sent to an address, that was 20 years old for a veteran. But the letter that went out encouraged veterans who received bad paper under Don't Ask, Don't Tell to seek a discharge upgrade. I have not run across anyone who received that letter. So that's why it's so important to spread the word among your coworkers and among any veterans you know, just to make sure we get the correct information out there. This is just some helpful sample language from Swords to Plowshares, which is an amazing veterans nonprofit located in San Francisco. These are just magic words to use to make sure that the board understands what you're asking for. So not only are you asking for an upgrade, you don't want anything on that upgraded DD-214 to still be stigmatizing. So you don't want them to include any remarks on the new and improved DD-214 that makes it obvious why, that it was corrected to start with. And I do see that a lot. It will say upgraded under such and such policy on this date. Because you don't want people who see that DD-214 asking questions. Why did you get discharged? What happened? This is why a lot of veterans with bad discharges just will not say they're veterans, because they don't want to answer the questions that come along with showing that DD-214. And this is sample language for the higher level review board. So this is the easy argument to make if you ever see one of these cases. Like I said, I haven't seen it yet. There's always misconduct mixed in there. But you can definitely argue that it was unjust if the only reason was because they admitted to being gay, or there was an investigation and they were found to have committed misconduct under Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And again, this is a way to waive the timeline, but not at the discharge review board, only at the Board of Corrections, and say, I just now found out, when Lloyd Austin put out that 10-year memo, that I was eligible for an upgrade. And your basic argument, anytime you're asking for an extension of that 3-year time limit at the Board of Corrections, is in the interest of justice, I request that you consider my application. And I've never had pushback on that. They have always been very good about waiving that time limit and considering the application. So here's some helpful sample language again from Swords to Plowshares for those tougher cases where there was a Don't Ask, Don't Tell discharge, but there's also aggravating factors. So again, you're going to use those mitigation arguments that we talked about earlier in the presentation. So I just updated this yesterday because it's kind of hard to find this information. So I wanted to have it all in one place for all of you. This is a super easy way to help veterans. If you want to do an easy clinic out in the community, this is the easiest thing you'll ever do in the discharge upgrade process, is just to change a name. It used to be more complicated. The Board of Corrections was the only place you can apply for a name change on the DD-214. They used to require all sorts of evidence, including medical evidence, of surgery to change genders. That was very intrusive, of course. So just this year, they put out a new policy. So we're going to get into that in the next slide, but these are just some helpful websites where you can find information. However, they don't seem to have this updated or streamlined process for transgender name changes. So that's why I put it together and added some extra slides here. And again, this is not automatic. Veterans often don't know that they can change their name on their DD-214. So the veteran I'm currently helping is in her 70s, and all her other documents show her correct name. Her driver's license, social security card, everything. But the DD-214 is still in her dead name. So she can't show that to someone like at the VFW or the DAV because that would that would result in a lot of questions. So I'm really happy to be helping her with this process. And I feel sad that she didn't know about it until very recently when I did another one of these presentations. So again, please help me spread the word about this. The new streamlined process is only for court-ordered name changes. So if your veteran does not have a court-ordered name change, you can go through the old process, which is on the previous slide on those websites. So they've made it so much easier now that all you have to do is fill out that DD 149 form, include a copy of a valid court order, and then submit the request, the court order name change. So I was a little paranoid with this veteran. I submitted all her other documents showing her correct name, not just the court ordered name change, just in case. But there's different procedures for each board. So I've listed that out on separate slides here. So this is for the Army. The Navy, of course, does something different. The Marine Corps usually is squished together with the Navy, but apparently not for name changes, and they prefer email submissions. And then there's Air Force and Space Force. So they still want you still have to fill out that form, the DD 149. Nothing is automatic, nothing is quite that simple. And the big problem is if veterans don't know they can do this. So I really hope that this will raise some awareness. The super important part of all this streamlined process is that they're not going to make veterans wait 2 to 3 years. That is how long a normal discharge upgrade takes to process, 2 to 3 years. That is a long time to wait. This is a relatively simple topic. You're just asking for a name change. You're submitting that DD 149 and the court ordered name change. It should be a quick process. Now, with that being said, I think I submitted my request in June or July. Still haven't heard back, so hopefully it's fast. It's not that fast. Sometimes I have different definitions of fast than the boards do, but I'll just be thrilled if it's less than 2 or 3 years. So please share this on your websites, the new and updated information. If you have trouble sharing it, reach out to me. I'm happy to send it to you. So this is the sample language, and I use this on my request. Again, this is from Swords to Plowshares, so thank you to them for putting all this together. You can just basically tell the board that since you separated from the service, you legally changed the name and gender. Now, there's actually no gender on the DD 214, so you don't have to worry about that. You just want to get the name changed. And again, ask for everything you want. So you don't want them to put in the comments section of the upgrade DD 214, this was upgraded from the veteran's dead name. That would not be helpful. So I included all this language in the one I submitted just in case, because we do not want to assume anyone understands, LGBTQ cultural competency, and you want everything to be perfect for that veteran when it comes back. I don't think we're going to have too much time to get into the character of discharge review. It will be in the slides. Like I said, this could be an entirely separate training. This is the process by which a veteran can apply, even with a bad discharge, to try to get healthcare benefits. It's usually a struggle. It's usually not easy. So something I want to share with you all that I hope you will put on your websites is that vet centers are a wonderful resource for veterans with bad discharges. They are free counseling centers for combat veterans and survivors of military sexual trauma. They also offer counseling to families, which the big VA does not do. So if your veteran has been turned away for healthcare or counseling at the big VA, tell them to try the vet centers. You may have heard that the crisis line has been updated. So the new number is 988 and then press 1 for veterans. And 211 is always a good resource to keep in mind. That will go to your local switchboard where they have the most updated information about any community programs. So even if your veteran is not eligible for VA healthcare benefits, encourage them to check out veterans focused programs and the community. They will often serve veterans even if they have an other than honorable discharge. Here's some more resources. Again, I highly recommend getting that discharge upgrade practice manual for anyone in your organization who will be helping with discharge upgrades. And there's a lot of need out there. And if you can't help veterans with upgrades, please send them to us at the Veterans Consortium. I think I have that information coming up. I hope I do. Again, Swords to Plowshares has great resources on their website. That's pretty much where I learned everything I know about upgrades when I was starting out doing this 10 years ago. Swords to Plowshares, Connecticut Veterans Legal Center. They have a very comprehensive upgrade manual, including one from the old days, which was super helpful for some of my older veterans. There's a recording of a CLE. I think it was an all-day CLE about upgrades. So I want to include as much as possible. There's a lot of information out there. And of course, if you want to volunteer with the Veterans Consortium, we would love to have you as a pro bono attorney. We always need more attorneys because there is a lot of need out there. We need all the help we can get. Modern Military Association of America is also a good resource and a place to volunteer. Oh, good, I did put this here. So this is how to contact us at the Veterans Consortium. If veterans need help with discharge upgrades, here's the numbers and the website. I think I put the website, I can't see it right now. But I'll send it to everyone along with the PowerPoint. And then the main part of our service is helping veterans with federal court appeals, which service officers cannot do because they're not attorneys. You have to be admitted before the CAVC, the Federal Court for VA Claims. So we also help with that, and that's the information at the top for that. And then this is my information. So I definitely encourage you to reach out. Please don't be shy. This is a really wild and wonderful area of the law. I love to talk about it. I can't promise I'll get back to you the same day, but I will do my best to get back to you as soon as I can. I really enjoy talking about this topic, and thank you for your attention today.
I'm on mute. I said, all right, thank you so much, Christy. Before we get into questions, because there were some that came into the chat, I'm just going to pop the CLE code in. I know folks might have to drop off, and I want to get that out. The CLE code is 2207263, N as in Nancy. That will be in the email as well, so don't worry if you don't get it now. So, Christy, you're so incredibly knowledgeable about all of this, and you're just so good at really relaying information in a digestible and understandable manner. So especially when, we're talking about, as you taught me, something that's very clear as mud. So thank you.
Yes.
I'm going to just go back up and see where I can grab the first question. And I see here, the question is, can you talk a bit about benefit of COD process versus discharge upgrade process? My understanding is that COD can give a veteran access to VA benefits, but will not upgrade discharge characterization or change the DD 214.
That's absolutely correct. So it's a separate process through the VA. What I've always done in my previous jobs is I do both. Because you're putting together basically the same information for the discharge upgrade before the review board as you would before the character of discharge at the VA. So I do both to see which one shakes out first. It's not guaranteed that the COD is going to happen first, especially in certain states that I won't mention. But it is an argument, it's a process, but please try to do both if you can. And you're right, even if you win at the COD and you can get healthcare and benefits, that's fantastic. That makes it less of an emergency, less of a painful wait on the upgrade, but it is not going to change what's on your DD 214. So you do want to go ahead and proceed with that process also.
All right. And the next question that I have here, I'm not good at summarizing it, so I'm just going to read it out loud. I'm a retired Air Force JAG. Everyone, even JAGs, always toss out the military zero tolerance policy. The broadcast that there is zero tolerance, that's the broadcast, but it's not actually true. The Air Force has retention criteria. If a member meets them, they can be allowed to remain in the Air Force. If the policy was truly zero tolerance, no one would be retained. So I think these are more thoughts.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely. Absolutely. And use that, and that's what I love about the Wilkie memo. Got it right this time. That says, come on, people, be realistic. An honorable discharge does not require flawless service. And when you're looking at the whole character of a veteran's service, you've got to make the right decision and give that upgrade. So thank you for that input. I appreciate hearing that from the trenches.
So another question that we have here too is there a toolkit that you can put together to share with the NASDVA to get the word out about DAD upgrades?
Well, I will definitely share my presentation. I encourage all of you to share that. I am not territorial about this stuff. It really worries me that people don't know about this. And like I said, there's so much to know out there in veterans world that I can't expect everyone to be an expert on this. So please, please put it on your website, share it with veterans who need the information. Again, I have no problem with you sharing this far and wide, the recording and the PowerPoints. I really want to get the word out there, and I just don't have time to do too many trainings. So I appreciate you helping spread the word.
Okay, and I think you got to this, but I'll just read it out loud. Is there any guidance available for simultaneously seeking gender name change slash name changes on military records for trans veterans when applying to the BCMRS? Um, it says, relatedly, any available guidance for current trans service members, misgendered language on records and awards, which, I think you addressed, but I don't know if there's anything additional you wanted to add.
So you can definitely ask for everything if you're already applying for an upgrade already. You can ask for all the records to be changed to your correct name, but I believe that has to go through the full board process, which will take 2 to 3 years. So just be aware that's not a streamlined process. I don't really have any guidance for current trans service members. That is tough. And, I've been talking about this to other advocates with things changing, depending on who's in power, that makes it really scary for someone who's a trans service member to think that things could just all of a sudden change. So I encourage you to check out Modern Military Association of America. They may have better resources for current service members.
Okay, just a few more if you have the time.
Mhm.
Someone said, just to clarify, only the BCMR can change the RE codes, correct? Or has that recently changed?
I did see that technically, but I always ask for it at the discharge review board, and I know they've given it to me. I mean, I have a very recent case where I asked for everything and they gave me everything I asked for. It was a beautiful thing. They changed him from other than honorable to honorable. They changed the separation code, they changed the narrative reason, and they changed the reentry code. So don't tell anyone they can't change it. Ask for it anyway.
All right, next one is a shout out that I think is worth mentioning. It says, shout out to Darren Pruslow. I'm sorry if I said that incorrectly, and his team at the CT Veterans Legal Center doing excellent work over there.
Yes, absolutely.
And then I think there were just a few more. I think there was a follow up to the question about COD before the upgrade. Strategically, should one pursue the COD before the upgrade, or does order matter at the same time?
Whichever one you can get together first, submit that. That's what I say. Like I said, both of them are kind of longer processes than I would like. I'm an impatient person, and it bothers me that it takes so long, especially if veterans don't have health care and they don't have any benefits. That's really alarming to tell them that after we put the case together, which takes a good long while to get all those records, look at them, put it together, and then once we submit it, to tell them it's going to take 2 to 3 years is really hard. So you want to try to get them everything you can, and don't forget about those community resources. I think a lot of veterans think they're not eligible for anything if they're not eligible for VA services. That's not true. And the VA, I do want to give a shout out to the social workers at the VA. Even if the big VA cannot help a veteran with health care or benefits, the social workers are your treasures at the VA. They're going to know about all the community program. They're going to know about any funding for housing for homeless veterans. I strongly encourage everyone to go visit a social worker at the VA, even if they're not eligible for health care and benefits.
All right. And the last question that I see, are there any efforts being taken nationally to try and reach out to veterans eligible for discharge upgrades due to the repeal of DADT?
I think so, and I hope so. I have heard rumors of this. I know there's a reporter working on it. I've been working with her on this. She has given me a lot of hope in the people that she's talked to about this issue, because you're right, there should be a lot more outreach by the VA and by the Department of Defense to make sure veterans are aware of their rights. So I hope that is coming very soon.
And one last question slid in: to get GI Bill benefits, a veteran needs to have an honorable discharge, correct?
Absolutely, great question. I have had JAGs tell me before that, oh, it's fine if they get a general discharge, they're still eligible for everything. That is not true. So again, this is where it becomes really important to know what your client's goals are. If you were only planning to ask for an upgrade from other than honorable to general, that's fine, that might be more realistic. But if your veteran is counting on getting GI Bill benefits, you're going to need to have that conversation. You're going to need to see if you can get together some stronger evidence to make the leap from other than honorable to honorable, which I personally do almost all the time. Because if they make it through our program criteria, they have good mitigation arguments. Like I said, I'm going to ask for everything. Why not? The worst they can do is say, no, we'll give them a general. Okay. But I want to control the narrative. If I think it's a strong case, I want to control that narrative and point them towards the direction of an honorable discharge with all the other changes due.
Awesome. Well, I think it's safe to say, Christy, that the veteran community is very lucky to have you on the front lines of this discharge upgrade program. I know what an honor it's been to work with you, and I always miss working with you. And any opportunity that I get to work with you again and highlight all the amazing stuff you do is a wonderful day in my book. So, with that, I will remind everyone the CLE code is in the chat. It's 220-726-3N as in Nancy. You are receiving many thank yous, many accolades. Is there any last minute thing you want to say before we stop the recording and sign off today?
No, I just appreciate being given the opportunity today. And like I said, please reach out if you need more resources. Please feel free to share all this information with as many people as you can. I feel so fortunate to be able to do this work every day and work for the Veterans Consortium. So it is a joy, and I look forward to talking to you all about any questions you may have. Thank you, Alexis.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for everything you do. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone.
Take care. Bye.